The final representation we're going to talk about today is called the cumulative frequency. Now, the cumulative frequency is a graph that is only the line part of this graph, and it actually takes into account all the information that a box and whisker takes into account. So a box and whisker has minimum, Q1, medium, Q3, and maximum. So all of this information will also be drawn on our cumulative frequency. Notice that for a cumulative frequency graph, our y-axis is always the frequency, same as our histogram was always the frequency. So we're kind of tying all three representations together to create this cumulative frequency graph. Here, we have an example where there seems to be 70 in total. So 70 people were interviewed. So that means when I go halfway, 70, I'm going to be at 35. So from 0 to 35, this is where I should see the median of my data. So what I do is I follow this straight line until I hit the cumulative frequency line, and then I go straight down, and this value here is the median of my data. Then I repeat the same thing. Let's say I'm looking for Q1. Q1 is 25% of my data. So that means if I know half, I can separate that in half again. And again, I'm going to follow the straight line until I hit the cumulative frequency line. And then I'm going straight down. And this value here is going to be my Q1 value. So let's do a couple examples to understand how to use this graph. So this is our first example. Given the cumulative frequency graphs shown below, what are the median and the interquartile range? So for this one, I'm going to need some information. I'm going to need the median. And then in order to find the interquartile range, I'm going to need to find what is my Q1, and I'm going to need to find what is my Q3. Okay, first thing we see is we have 80 as our cumulative frequency. So halfway 80 is at 40. So you're going to look at where this line intersects with our cumulative frequency line. So here is where we're going to have our median. So I'm going to take a ruler. You have a ruler. You're going to follow this down, and we're going to find that our median is going to be this value here. Then we're going to do the same thing for our Q1 and our Q3. So halfway between 0 and 40 is 20. So let me change colors here. And here I'm going to follow my line. And at the bottom here, I'm going to have this value be my Q1. And then we're going to do the same thing. Halfway between 40 and 80 is 60. So I'm going to draw my line and I'm going to follow it down. It seems to be very, very close to my median. And this is going to be my Q3. Now it's pretty hard to see with my computer what all these numbers are, but on your sheet of paper, you can follow along with a straight ruler and you'll be able to find this. You should find that your Q1 was 63, medium was 74, and your Q3 was 79. Therefore, finding your interquartile range, 79 minus 63, we get 16. Our next example, the following is a cumulative frequency data for the length of a batch of 120 sunflowers. If only sunflowers with length of at least 170 can be exported, how many sunflowers will be exported? Okay, so sunflowers with a length of at least 170. At least 170, that means 170 or more. Here we're talking about the length. So the length, that is our x value here. So length is here. I can see 170 is here. So we want to figure out how many sunflowers are 170 in length or more, right? So we're going to look for this part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at 170 and go and see where that is on my frequency, my cumulative frequency chart. It happens here. So what it tells me is that there's 90 sunflowers that are less than 170. So how many flowers are more? Well, there's going to be 120 minus 90 will be at least 170. So 120 minus 90 is going to be the answer that we are looking for. 30 sunflowers will be able to be exported from our batch of 120. And our final example for today, a test is given to 160 students. We see that at the top of the cumulative frequency maximum. Each student earned a score on a 100-point scale. We see the score, the raw data, is at the bottom. The cumulative frequency graph for the scores is shown. Write down the number of students who earned a score of 50 points or less. Okay, so 50 points or less. So here we're going to find 50 points, which is here, and how many of them scored less than 50 points. So how many, meaning we need to look at the frequency. So we hit here, and then we follow our line until here, and we get the value 30. So there are 30 students who are scoring 50 or less. So that's our answer for part A. For part B, the middle 50% of test results lie between A and B, and A is smaller than B. Find A and B. Okay, middle 50% of the results. What this signifies is that if we would have a box and whisker plot, the middle 50% would be the box itself. So that would be our middle 50%. So what I'm trying to find out is what is the score between the Q1, which starts my box, and the Q3, which ends my box. So this is a sneaky way that IB has of asking us what is the Q1 and what is the Q3. So how we do that, remember, each section represents 25%. So 160. If I do 160 and I half it, 160 divided by 2, we get 80. My median is going to be here. Then if I half again 80, my Q1 is going to happen and from 0 to 40 data points. And then if I go halfway between 80 and 160, I'm at 120. So I'm going to be interested in the scores between 40 and 120. So I'm going to start and I'm going to follow my line here. And I'm going to get that this value here seems to be 55. So that means 25% have scored from 0 to 55. And I'm going to do the same thing for my Q3. So my Q3, I'm going to follow down here. And we're going to see that this seems to be 75. So what it means is that between the scores of 55 and 75, I have 50% of my population. So what are the values of A and B? Well, they want to have A is 55, while B is 75.